This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du Norsk?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Her Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and today we're talking with Michelle Taylor. Michelle is the founder of Women in Wealth, a transformative platform aimed at empowering women to take control of their financial futures. With over a decade of experience in financial services, she's committed to closing the wealth gap by providing financial education and a supportive community from women from all walks of life. From business owners preparing for exit strategies to stay-at-home moms managing household budgets, Michelle's initiative helps women define and achieve their version of financial success with confidence and clarity. Well, Michelle, I am really thrilled to welcome you to the show today, so welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm so happy that you are here. First of all, I'm really glad that we cross paths, as it's an annual intention for me to empower women through a wealth series at the beginning of the year, because as we know, we just came off of a holiday season. I'm sure there's so many people out there. Maybe there's some anxieties around how much money was spent, what was spent, and how to actually manage the debt accumulated as well as plan for this year. And so that's why I'm really driven to do this series every year, because I feel it's so important. So yeah, I was really glad when I heard from your assistant, reached out and, told me about you, and we got to speak. And I really felt like, yes, that you'd be a great addition to the show, because it's, again, like I said, it's so important around after we finish something like the holidays, people spend a lot of money. They sometimes spend so much because they're in that giving spirit, sometimes go overboard. And then there's almost like that regret afterwards. And it's not regret of what they've gifted, but regret at what they spent. So I'm really excited to dive in with you with the questions. So you've spent over a decade in financial services. You've now built Women in Wealth, a platform that reaches women from all walks of life. So can you take us back to what inspired this mission? Because I know obviously there's probably some inspiration behind it, and the turning point that showed you financial education needed to look different for women.
Yes. So if you would have told me I would have ended up in this world 15, 20 years ago, well, probably 20, I would have laughed. I came from a family of entrepreneurs. My parents were divorced, and both of them approached money very differently. My mom, when my parents got divorced, went back to work and went into retail management. She instilled in me that I should never go looking for someone to provide a life. I needed to go after the life I wanted and do that independently. Also, though, she taught me a little bit of like money scarcity mindset because she was so budgeted. My dad, on the other hand, was an entrepreneur, and despite making really, building a legacy with his business, when I was younger, it was it was touch and go. There was a lot with starting a business, and I saw that, but not as much as I probably should have. And what I associated with him was entrepreneurship meant abundance and fun and it was like easy and happy. So I wanted to go that direction. But he was not teaching me either. So as I moved through my life, at 17, I actually was diagnosed with leukemia very unexpectedly and was very fortunate to come through that, went right into remission. But after that, I probably still don't know the real answer, but I found myself being drawn and pulled to maybe the dopamine hit of shopping. And so I found myself in a lot of credit card debt. I was buying things for the life that I wanted, but hadn't quite earned yet and had no job. So through that, I really had to learn on my own and figure out, okay, I need to stop this and correct course. With that, I did become an entrepreneur. I had two different business ventures that taught me so much, and I did it on my own, and I loved it. And I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but then I met my husband and wasn't exactly sure what life would have in store. So I ended up working in the fashion industry and loved it. But after we got married, realized this wasn't going to allow me the freedom and flexibility that I wanted to be a mom. So I ended up talking to my wealth manager, who had become at that point two of our best friends, and the rest is history. That's how I became a wealth manager. And in that work, became niched down very much so in working with entrepreneurs and women. And what I was finding is the conversations that they were having were much different than what their male counterparts were. I watched married couples come in and the woman take the back seat and let the man lead the conversation, even though I had a feeling that the woman who was the business owner probably knew exactly what was going on, but didn't feel like she had a seat at the table, let's say. And so I found through the last almost 12 years now of doing this that women are very, very good with intuition. They're good at managing money. They're good at investing. In fact, data tells us that we're even a little bit better than the guys, but they don't have the confidence to do it on their own because it's taken us a long time to get here. It's staggering to think that, it was only in the 70s and 80s that women needed a male cosigner for a credit card. How is that possible?
Mhm.
So the consulting side of my business it was incredible, and it really gave me the insight to what was needed, and that's how Women in Wealth was started. And Women in Wealth is meant to be a community and a platform for financial education and providing the tools that we may not have had. And really at the core of it, it's to change the way women think and feel about money and empower them to leave a legacy for future generations.
Yeah, I love that. I love your journey. I love how you mapped it out for us. One of the questions I did have for you, and I'm not sure if it was answered, it was sort of alluded to, but was there a moment where you realized that traditional financial systems really were failing women?
Well, I don't know if they were failing as much as the advisor on the other side of the table was not able to connect with women as much. So historically, men have been the ones leading the charge. So when they were talking to male financial advisors, they spoke the same language. But what I found in this time that I've spent with thousands of women and married couples and guys too, is that men approach all of this very differently. Men are focused on rate of return. Women are much more emotional, and they will say, listen, I don't care what the return is. I want to know that the kids are taken care of, college is taken care of. I can live my life the way I want to, and I'm never going to outlive my money. And if that happens with them getting a 5% rate of return or a 20% rate of return, it doesn't matter as much. They're more focused on the result. And so I am still such a minority in this industry, in this field, that when you have a man that's guiding a woman, it's hard for them to connect on like the real why and the emotional piece of that. And I think that that's where I saw the opportunity. Women were not being heard or seen in the way that they connected with. So they kind of just shrunk back a little bit. My goal is to get to the heart of their financial plan and their wealth building goals and see it and validate it and help them get there.
Yeah. You talked about emotion and it's really true. At least I know for me, even in relationships, for relationships to go deeper for me now, I've been married almost 30 years, but for my relationships in the past and even with my husband, I found that the emotional piece really had to be in place before anything else, like the emotional connection. And I think there is that emotional connection for women to money. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I think sometimes, we do, like when people purchase, it's usually from that
Sure.
emotional place, right? But I love how you brought that into play because for me, feel like that there is that emotion. You even talked about shopping. Like I remember now not so much, but I remember being younger and the shopping adrenaline. It was like
Mhm.
a fix to go out
Yeah.
and buy something and having a bunch, and it was all emotionally driven, but I think a lot of too was just trying to overcome some things,
Mhm.
but to have a lot of things I had so much that, when I really look back, I really only maybe used a small percentage of everything that I had, like all the clothes I had, all the shoes. I mean, over 200 pairs of shoes. Who needs over 200 pairs of shoes? I don't. I didn't need over
Well,
200 pairs of
Leslie,
shoes, you
you're
know?
talking to a shoe girl, so I don't know. That
I
may be a
love
topic for a
shoes.
different day.
Yeah, no, I love shoes. And but for me, I was only gravitating to a really small amount, like the same things over and over. So that I just remember it was really emotionally driven. So
Mhm.
one of the things I know that I've heard a lot, and you might have heard a lot, is that women ask the question, like, what does financial freedom even look like for me as a woman? So, how do you help your clients define their own version of success? And what shifts when that definition finally becomes aligned with their values and what they want?
I mean, it's a game changer. The intentionality behind that is so important and critical to actually seeing a plan through to fruition. I talk about this a lot on my podcast where, we're in a time historically where we are inundated with everybody else's highlight reel. And so I think it's really important for women to say, okay, success for me and how to determine like what level of wealth is enough for me has nothing to do with what somebody else has decided that looks like for them. And that's hard because it's always in our face. And it's even like with hustle culture, right? For women right now, it's that whole like, oh, we're bosses, we're CEOs, and it's all wonderful. It is. And if you don't aspire to work 18 hours a day, that is also okay. And it doesn't mean that you're failing. And I think that goes back to really digging deep and saying, okay, you don't have to say, I want to be able to fly in a private jet. That doesn't mean that you're not working hard. And success can simply mean I want to build my life to a place where I can take 3 vacations a year without having to think about if I can afford it. I want to be able to start my day at 9:30 so that I can take my kids to school every day. I want to be able to help my niece be able to pledge and rush a sorority in college because I know that she would need that financial help. I want to be the one to give it to her. Whatever that thing is that feels good and lights you up, that's what you need to be chasing. Because if you're chasing something else because you think you should be, it's going to be really hard to put forth the consistency and the discipline it's going to take to accomplish that goal. You're going to lose the desire. Everything is exciting when you first start, right? When someone says, they sit down and say, I have this big goal. I'm going to start investing every extra penny I have. I always tell them, well, you're not, because you're not going to be able to stick to it. It's not going to become fun and exciting. You're going to have to sacrifice a lot, and then you're not going to do anything. So let's start somewhere that allows you to enjoy life. And it's the same thing with building success. Don't chase something that doesn't resonate with you.
Yeah, I so agree with that because, again, someone else's version of success, it might look good for them. And you could be looking at that thinking, oh, that looks amazing. Like your life looks so amazing. But it's not necessarily aligned with what you want. Like some people's version of success could be very small. They could have like, I want to be able to have this business of mine, but I don't want to grow it to millions and millions of
Yeah.
dollars because for me, I don't want to have a huge team. I just want to be comfortable here, making this much money. This is enough for me. This allows me to do XYZ, but it also allows me space to not feel like I have to be pushing and adding and doing so much more. So I love the idea that defining success should be what lights you up, not necessarily what everyone around us is saying. And that leads me to my next question because I know many women, they're smart, they're capable, they still hesitate to make those big financial moves, right? Whether they're investing, whether they're negotiating, it's their salaries, maybe they're planning for their future, whatever that looks like. And maybe that sometimes they even, if they're married, they might leave it up to their spouse. And I think I've talked to some women, most recently even, who have had to reinvent themselves because of divorce, because the spouse took care of everything, including the finances. So, from your experience, what's behind that hesitation? And how can women start building their financial confidence, especially if they weren't taught these skills growing up?
Hmm. Well, I think that it, it very simply, it's just because we have not had the same exposure to money as a tool, how it works, the opportunities that the guys have. We're not having those conversations. Women as a whole are taught to be polite and respectful and don't be big and don't ask inappropriate questions. And I think we've all heard, you don't talk about money or religion or politics. And I want to change that. And I think that the minute we can sit down and have a conversation with our girlfriends and be able to say, oh, I'm going up for this promotion and I don't know what I should ask for. I want to ask for $15,000. What has your experience been? Do you have any friends that are in this industry? What do they make? We have got to take the apprehension away from talking about numbers. They're just numbers. And I think a lot of it goes back to women have been taught for so long that we are in competition with each other. And I do think the narrative is changing where there's space for all of us. It's straightening each other's crowns. And I think that when you can sit down and ask a friend that maybe is making a lot more than you are about her finances and she feels safe telling you about them and kind of saying, this is what I've done and what has worked, that's when real change starts to happen. Women are making more money than we've ever made before. We control more of the spending dollars than we ever have before. We are starting businesses at a faster rate than the guys are. So all of these good things are happening, but we're unwinding centuries of don't talk about money, don't ask questions. So it's going to be a slow boil, but I think that we're headed in the right direction. And I think the simplest way to change it is to start talking about it with your friends, with your daughters, with your mothers, with anybody that is a woman and maybe you haven't had those conversations before. We are less likely to raise our hand when we are not certain. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard about that confidence gap, where, for example, putting your name into the ring for like a promotion, women won't do that unless they check 85% of the qualifications, where guys will at 30%. And so I think that, when we come to the table and we're sitting there, the last thing we want to do is raise our hand and say, wait a minute, what do you mean private equity or venture capital or cost segregation studies? What do those things mean? I think that women are intimidated to do that because they don't want anyone else to think she doesn't belong here. So the only way to fix that is talk to each other, find mentors, do research on your own, but don't take that research for the end all be all. That's just the start. Chat GBT is changing things. Don't go into chat and think, I'm getting my answer and I'm going to go pursue it. It's very important to build out your board of trusted advisors and run these things past them. But if you hear something, look it up. We have access to the information.
Yeah, absolutely. I so agree with you there. And one of the things too that I was thinking about as you were talking, there's also the other side to that, like they might leave it up to someone else to do, or they're maybe afraid to ask, or
Oh,
maybe they
yeah.
just haven't asked, right? Like oh, well, if I ask this question, are they going to think that I'm not intelligent? Or,
Right.
it's like an identity thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other part to that too is when I've talked a lot about burnout with a lot of women over the past 3 years, partly because I've noticed that burnout's just becoming so normalized that people just kind of, like they just say, oh, I'm just burning out. And they don't even, there's no, I don't know if there's the thought about it, but they're not really looking at it enough. Or I've actually had a client where when we were talking and I said, it really sounds like you've been burning out for a year now. And when she started thinking back, she says, I have been. I haven't felt like inspired, motivated. I felt tired. There's just so many things that are going on. And I feel like I'm just having to push and feeling trapped in this cycle that I'm in. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you was, because I know they're maybe not taking into account or realizing the cost to their well-being as they're striving for more financially, trying to build their wealth portfolio. They're not realizing that it could show up in their energy, their health, their relationships based on how they're pushing themselves. What advice or suggestions do you have for women to build their wealth in a way that doesn't come at the expense of themselves and actually supports their capacity to thrive?
I think you need to bring people to the table to give you a perspective from the outside oftentimes. I think that this is something that resonates so deeply with me as a cancer survivor, that truly our health is our wealth. There is nothing without it, and it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care what you've done or what you've built. So I think that really protecting yourself and putting parameters and bumpers around your well-being, I mean, it's critical. It doesn't matter what you're building for future generations if you're sick because you didn't take care of yourself. So I think it's really important to stop and say, what are the things that I'm going to honor? How do I build what I want to build while respecting those things? Because stress does do wild things to us. And when it comes to your financials, that's why I think, going back to what I said about, it's easy to be excited and say, I'm doing all of these great things, but you have to do it in a way that you're not going to get burned out. You can't expect, if you've never invested, to suddenly start investing and say, I'm going to do everything I can and work so hard and not accept anything as success unless I get to 50 grand at the end of the year. Well, if you've never started, you're going to burn yourself out trying to chase that, and you're not going to have much fun. So I think that that is really important. Obviously, if you've got somebody else that is, a spouse that's doing this with you, having the conversations. I think as a society, I talk about this all the time. I think women as business owners, and as they are becoming more and more the breadwinners of their families, we still haven't caught up in this regard either, where women are meant to work like they don't have children and parent like they don't work. And that is a struggle for, I know, even me, and I'm sure many of your listeners every single day. And why I said what I said about having outside perspective is sometimes there are little pivots and little things that you can do that will make such a difference in how you show up, how you protect the things that are important to you, and you're not burning yourself out. It's easy to get lost in it when it's you, but leaning on mentors or coaches or friends, spouses to say, okay, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? And how do I adjust this to make it feel better as I'm doing it? We don't like to ask for help usually. So I think it's
Mm,
really
yeah.
important to find the people and talk to them and come up with a plan.
Yeah, I so agree with you. And I know that's why I think partly what you do, because I want to circle back to women in wealth, because I think your community that you're building, I don't believe it's just an educational platform. I think for you, it's also about community for women.
Yes.
So that they have like-minded people that can understand and they get them, they get each other, they understand the challenges. And I love that because for me, community is so important. I feel it is. I always say community is like a self-care tool because we're not alone when we allow ourselves to be with other people in even if someone might say something that you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going through that right now," and or I went through that, and this is what I did," and you're gonna actually help spark someone to maybe move through something that they felt stuck in. So, my question for you is, why do you think connection's so important in financial growth, and how does being surrounded by other women on the same journey change what's possible?
Well, I think connection is just because the world moves so fast. The opportunities are there that changes so quickly. I mean, even what we can contribute to different retirement accounts or HSAs or any of those things change every year. And, having somebody that understands the struggle of trying to do all of the things and wearing the hats is such a gift. Speaking directly to entrepreneurship, being an entrepreneur is a lonely, undertaking sometimes, but when you're a woman in that space, it's even more so. So I think being able to have community of like-minded women that understand what it's like, that can encourage and uplift and tell you it's okay if you don't want to get dressed up and go to the office today and work from home. And, it's just women just have such a way of showing up for each other. And when we apply that to financial wellness and conversation, it just changes everything. I always think back to this one thing, and it's such a silly example, but I think it'll resonate. So, something self care, right, that I can say that I enjoy is getting a blowout. So, how do I put that into my day without it taking away from something else? And one time, someone that is in my circle as another female founder, she said that what she does is she goes and has a standing appointment every morning, but while she's getting it done, she's answering all of her emails for the day. And so it's allowing you to not do that at night and be productive while it's getting done in the morning. And it's like buying back an hour of your time. And that's something now that I have implemented. And every time I sit down in that chair, I think of her and think, I am so thankful. And those are the kind of things that you get when you have community. You have tips and tricks, and you have advice, and you have an opportunity to reach down and pull somebody else up or be pulled up. And I think we're all really good at doing that. We are nurturers by nature. And I think that women now are really in that space of wanting every one of us to succeed and being excited about sharing things. And the only way that happens is if we build a community where women are together in the same room. And when that happens, the magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also, too, one of the things you did say a few minutes ago was about the asking for help piece. So it is not only just going into those rooms, but allowing to receive from
Yes,
other women what they might have actually achieved something that you're now working through. And you might get different ideas, and one of them's going to resonate for you. It's going to work for you because not every idea is going to work for everybody because it's just based on our personalities and
sure.
what we think is going to work. But I do believe that in community, it's so much better because then you're not trying to figure it out all alone. And so I love that. From your perspective, I want to know, like for you personally, how do you personally stay grounded and aligned when you are making high stakes financial decisions for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I always look at what I'm truly getting for the money that I'm spending. So before I hire somebody to help me, I'm thinking through, what is this allowing me to do? Is it allowing me to double down in a way that I can grow my wealth or grow something that's important to me? Like hiring someone to clean your house so that you can spend Saturday with your kids and your husband or wife or whatever instead of doing that. So I think that as long as what you're spending, you see the value in the end result and what it's allowing you to do, that for me is how I make the decisions. Now, I, like you, have a tendency, for example, to if I'm shopping and looking at something, it's more important for me to know that what I'm getting is quality than quantity. And again, I guess that goes back to right when you're bringing relationships in that are selling you something that's service based, it's like I'm willing to spend money as long as the quality of what I'm getting justifies it and it allows me the freedom to do something else, whether it's important to me or growing my wealth.
Mhm.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. And I think it's important because I feel so much that I don't know what it is. I think there's this expectation like what I want and how I want to do it, but then there's also the other idea of like other people I'm looking at what the external world is saying how I should build my wealth. So when we make decisions, like how are we aligning it with our own values, with what feels good for us? So absolutely, you did answer the question, and I think that's great. My final question for you is one of the most powerful things I think for a woman that she can do is to redefine her financial legacy on her own terms. Because I truly believe that it's not about everyone else. It's about what makes you feel good individually and what you can do. Again, if you have this big goal that at some point you want to give back more to your community, but part of it is building a wealth portfolio that will assist you in doing that. I think that it's important that it aligns with you and what you want, and not what everyone else is saying, because I know we can have a lot of voices coming in our head. And
Yeah.
I think, as you had said earlier, really surround yourself with people in that community who understand. So, like your wealth advisors who understand money and can help you to make those decisions. But again, from your perspective and what really makes it land for you. So I want to ask you, what's one message that you hope every woman walks away with today when it comes to wealth, agency, and the kind of life she can build, the kind of life that's possible for her?
I would say really spend some time thinking through what your success story looks like. I would encourage everybody to talk about money, talk about what you want to accomplish, take the emotion out of it. And I know that's really tricky, but money is just a tool. Money is a tool that allows us to make an impact. And I think that that is the biggest thing is asking yourself, what is the impact that you want to leave with these dollars or the wealth that you're building? And, when someone will say, well, I want to make sure my kids go to college. And it's like, but why? Ask the deeper question of yourself. Is it because you didn't go to college and you want the legacy that you're leaving to be one of opportunity and education? Is it that, there's a charity that matters to you and you want to impact? I think it all comes down to impact. And if you can think about tying your financial goals to the impact that you want to leave, no matter how big or small, it is your success story. And you have the tools at your fingertips, unlike any other time in history, to do just that. I would say stay in your lane. Don't worry about what your neighbors to the left and right are doing. Worry about what you're building. Worry about the impact it's going to have. And do it in a way that if somebody else is watching you, you never know what you're encouraging them to do and what path they may be able to forge because they've seen you do it. So do it with integrity and just be open and willing to ask for what you're worth and don't undervalue what you bring to a situation. And don't think just because you haven't had an upbringing with wealth that it means you can't build wealth on your own terms. And go after it like it is the only thing that matters.
I really love that. That was great advice. Thank you, Michelle. I've really loved spending time with you today. I've loved hearing about how you built your community, how you rebuilt your life and your career to creating women in wealth, which I think is so important. Helping women also feel not only confident and capable around their money, but also doing it through community. Because again, as I said, community to me is so important. And I really appreciate your honest answers to everything, because I think it's important that we listen, those of us who are maybe not versed in money speak, if you will, or even just understanding how our finances work. It's always great to have someone on who this is what they do, and this is their expertise. And that's why, as I was saying, it's so important for me to have this series every year, because I feel like it's that time of year where we're starting to think about the past things that happen and how are we going to manage this year. And I want women to walk away feeling confident to do it and not really lose their identity in money, to not lose their identity in how much or how little we have, and also how much or how little knowledge we have around it. Yeah. I want them to feel good about it and to find communities like your own. So again, I really appreciate what you do, the work that you're doing, because it is really needed. So thanks again for sharing today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I am thankful that there's people like you out there making an impact in so many ways.
Oh, thank you so much. And to our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Michelle directly and learn more about women in wealth and the work she's doing, you can find her contact information in the show notes. Remember, building wealth isn't just about the numbers or milestones. It's about creating a sense of steadiness, choice, of freedom in your life. When your money decisions are rooted in clarity and integrity, they begin to support you instead of silently draining you. You're allowed to grow financially and still honor your energy, your values, and the life that you're creating. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Electricast. Welcome to the Candle Power Hour. Come with us backstage behind the scenes of show business spanning over 4 decades and bringing you the experiences that can only be told by the people who were there.
Our guests are from the A-list, the F-list, and everyone in between. Get set for some of the most insane, hilarious, and inspiring stories you will ever hear.
I'm Mercury.
And I'm Diego.
Your host for the Candle Power Hour.
Ever thought about starting your own podcast?
Do you have a business or a message you want to share with the world?
Well, now it's easier than ever with Electricast. Hi, I'm Mark Netter.
And I'm Peter Rafelson. We're the founders of Electricast Media.
Whether you want to start a new podcast or already have one, join Electricast to grow your audience, monetize your content, and build your community.
With our simple sign-up, you get free promotion, world-class analytics, premium ads, and personal support.
Go to electricast.com and join our community today.
Electricast. Transform your influence.
Electricast. Electricast.